Beautiful day in New York today. It is Tech Week, and I thought this would be a good way to start off Tech Week by doing a quick podcast. This will be the first Watto Business podcast, a podcast in which we talk to founders, creators, hear their stories. And I'm lucky today to have James Norman of Pilotly, a platform that helps Hollywood film studios and TV stations get more insights into the content that they are developing. James, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Your story is really interesting because it doesn't start in Hollywood. It starts in Michigan, right outside Detroit, Michigan. Where did you grow up?
So born in Lansing, which is the capital, and then grew up around Detroit. But in general, grew up around cars, grew up around car manufacturing facilities and, blue collar work, stuff like that.
Were you always a car nut? Were you interested in it because you were surrounded by that sort of atmosphere, or was it a kind of an innate thing?
It was, well, funny enough, it is somewhat innate. Once you get older and you talk to your cousins and you see what your children do and stuff like that. But really, I was more in the car audio space. So not so much worried about the style of the car and all that, but more about the sound in it. So did a lot of that early on. At first, it was home audio, because obviously I didn't have a car. And then I'd say one of my first points of real like customer feedback, product market fit was like my first day of high school, and we still tried to sell our home audio. And this guy Fernando said, "What am I gonna do with home audio? I have a car. I want car audio." And we were like, it's like never thought about it, and it was like we need to do that. So really was heavy into selling car audio online, and built one of the first websites that did that back in like '95.
What was that
So did a
website?
lot of
What was that website called?
MJH. It's called MJH Sound. So me and my best friend Martin Jacob, and then there was James Howard, which was me. So we kind of just combined it into MJH Sound.
This was
Um,
before you went to college, wasn't it? It was
yeah,
when.
yeah.
So you started. How old were you when you started MJH?
Probably like 12.
So super young. You couldn't even drive a car, but you.
No, but I had a car though. It was in the garage. I couldn't drive it, but I could work on it. I could test the audio in it. So yeah, we both had cars before we were 16, but we couldn't drive anywhere. They just had a lot of sound in them.
So you just had like a tricked out sound system, better than most people's home audio systems.
Yeah,
Kind
in
of
a parked car.
in a stationary vehicle. How long?
Yeah.
And then after you started this business when you were 12, you
hmm
continued to run it throughout high school, throughout college as well, right?
Yeah. So I went to Michigan, University of Michigan, for electrical engineering, and that is a little bit more work than I'd ever really done. I hadn't really studied too much in high school, so it was a lot of work, actual homework. And so that took my focus away from the business a little bit. It was still happening, but also Google came out, right? And so like that changed the way search worked. So, pre 2000, you search for car audio, there's only two sites coming up first, MJ Sound and Crutchfield. Post Google, it was like a whole page of Crutchfield stuff, and like it changed the whole dynamic of online sales.
Mhm.
And PayPal came out, right, and that changed the way that payments took place. And so I had never even integrated PayPal into the MJ Sound website. It was pre-PayPal, so
How would how would it work? Would
people
people?
sent you checks in the mail, like literally, like they
Wow,
sent me a check back,
uh,
and I would send the product back.
that's
You know,
that's very old school. That's the way eBay and well, a lot of internet companies
right?
did, is you would have the website, people would place an order, they mail you an actual paper check, and then 6 weeks later they get something in the mail.
Yeah. So it was like that, and I think that was now if I think back at it, that was one of the advantages of how we were selling because they could call us. We pick up the phone, and they enjoyed the conversation. They could trust it. and they would send the money. You know, versus like on eBay, there was no one to call. You were really just kind of like rolling the dice. You know what I'm saying?
Very anonymous.
Uh,
Yeah.
very anonymous. So I feel like that was actually part of one of our strengths was the customer service component. Because we're always around. We're just in high school. What are we doing? Like doing algebra? Like no, we know algebra. Like
Hmm.
so. Anyway, so yeah. In college, MJ sound transformed because um, Fast and the Furious that came out, and so that was a California thing. It became more global, and so we started getting involved in building cars too. And
And
we had to meet these
how many people were part of this organization? Was it just
two
two people? Okay.
two
So
people.
it's you and your best friend, and then eventually you scaled to somehow selling and making vehicles that,
Right.
it sounds like you're just selling like head units, like Pioneer head units, but it actually,
Yeah, yeah, but the whole thing. We were doing the speakers. We had the loudest cars in upstate New York and Michigan. Like, we were doing the whole thing, the wiring, the batteries, because it was too much, there wasn't enough power in the car. We were doing all the electrical system, all the audio,
I've
and,
seen some of
didn't.
these I've seen some of the vehicles on the Pilotly website, and when you hear about, oh, we were selling sound equipment online or audio equipment for vehicles online, it sounds like you're just selling like basic things like head units, but the vehicles you ended up making after a few years were the types of vehicles you would find in the Fast and Furious movies. They were these decked out,
Right.
souped up, highly customized vehicles that you would find in actual Hollywood movies, and they were in Hollywood movies.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the pivot. The pivot was sales are down, but we have a lot of local customers who love what we do, and we had built a couple of the fastest Mazdas, and we emailed Mazda and asked them, "Hey, we're really good at this. Like, is there something we can do for you?" And they sent back like an RFP, and I wrote like this 40-page proposal, which at the time I didn't know was completely world first because no one has ever written a 40-page detailed proposal about a car. And so they got that, and then they sent Mazda 3 to my dorm room. It was this before it came out, so it was handmade. There's only like 8 of them in the world. They sent one of them to my dorm room,
Oh wow.
and um, I began building that out, and that was the first car we built, and that snowballed into having cars from Honda, Mazda, Toyota. And when I graduated, I moved to LA because I had Honda, Toyota, and Nissan, and Mitsubishi were in LA. So I had more people I was working with doing cars in LA than the Midwest. And so I moved. And when I showed up with all these cars, pretty quickly, like, the culture is there. So I ran into the people that did the cars for Fast and Furious and all that. And they're like, these are all, like, I would come to a car show with like 3 cars. I'd call my friends to drive the cars to the show. And I'd be like, these are all yours? Like, yeah, I got like 10 of these things. They're like, we need you to have this stuff in the movies.
So your
So,
big break uh for the car audio business was that Mazda 3, and that took you to California. And then once you were
yeah,
in California, did you open up was there a physical location, or would you just go to these car shows and by word of mouth,
yeah.
would spread that, hey, there are these two guys and they're tricking out these cars in an amazing way?
Yeah, yeah. It was just by sheer nature of showing up in the right space with stuff that I was showing up with cars that didn't you couldn't buy,
Right.
right? So it's pretty obvious when you show up that you're doing something that's pretty different. Um, and at that time, I also had a job. I got my first job. I only had 2 jobs in my life, and one of them was product planning and design at Mitsubishi. So I was working at a company that was revered by people in that car space.
Oh yeah. The Lancer
Um,
Evo.
yeah, Evo, all that. I was on the product planning for Evo 8, 9, and 10.
Oh wow.
Um, and did my best to create a twin turbo all-wheel drive Eclipse, which there is one of. It was in the design studio. It was amazing. Never sold. Never went to market. Um, but it does exist.
That's really cool. They did make a single turbo like the GSX. Those are really popular. But yeah,
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah,
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 that's really
yeah.
cool. And so you're making these amazing cars, these SEMA car show
Yeah,
vehicles. And how many customers did you end up having kind of at your peak? And then did the company expand to have more than two, employees, co-founders?
it never got past basically four people.
Hmm.
Um, and that was because I didn't understand. I was an engineer. I didn't understand like how to build a company, right? I understood
Hmm.
how to make money. I understood how to have, business conversation, propose value to different enterprises, be in the right space at the right time. But in terms of building an organization, delegating responsibilities like being a CEO, I had no concept of that. So the business was not in a position where it was going to scale too much far past those four people.
Hmm.
Because we never figured out how to do that. We never that whole time we're running that business, doing all these cars, selling all this stuff. We never raised any money. I mean, we never had any money, right? We just started making money. Our first sale was like a check came in, we purchased the product, we shipped the product, then we made some money. All right, now we have some money, and it kept building from there. So like it never been funded. I never been guided by somebody who had built a real business before. And so that's kind of like why eventually I made a pivot from it because it's something I loved, but I didn't know how to build into something that was the size of what I wanted to do. And so, a couple of things happened. My roommate at the time in Long Beach in LA, he was going to USC Marshall for business school. And so I ended up just going with him. I never applied. I just went. I just audited all the classes, met all the teachers. And I learned like, oh, this is how you do competitive analysis. Oh, this is what a financial model looks like. So like I went to school, did all that. And coming out of there, a side note business that never took off, but I think still has legs at some point. I built a car, automotive inspired clothing line. Saw the margins in clothes. I was in LA. There was an opportunity in that. So I got one of my classmates from USC invested in the clothing line, and we launched that. Um, and that was like making a little bit of money, but wasn't going. Again, I still wasn't a CEO yet. I was still in this mode of like I think there's a bigger market there, more audience, but I'm still not thinking about organizationally how you build a company, right? I'm learning a little bit about fundraising. But then my best friend in the automotive industry, my best friend today, he his roommate from college, he went to MIT. His roommate from college started Dropbox. And so when I saw what Drew was doing between going to Y Combinator, getting out of there, raising money, scaling up the company, XYZ, I was like, that's what I want to do. Right. And so I was like, I've been building stuff online far before he has. So why can't I go do that? And so I kind of was, again, still in LA. Now I was thinking about TV. We had just got done with Fast and Furious 4. And I was like, I don't think people have cable by 2020. I want to build a new version of cable TV. And so started off on that mission. That was my first real tech startup, which was called Ubi. So that's
Is
kind of how
this
I made a
when,
transition from cars to TV.
so was the motivation to get into a different space because the car audio business wasn't scaling as much as you could, or was it just was there a downturn in the market?
Yeah. That was definitely like the start of the decline. When you think about cars made around '05, '06, this was the point where like a G35 came out. The Mazda 3 was out. The Mazda 3 was almost like a 3 Series. Like I mean, it had HID headlights, amazing interior, great styling, 18-inch wheels. Like this is stuff you can never get anything but like a luxury German car, right?
Mhm.
So '05, '06 was a major shift right before the recession too. So you had a shift to where cars were coming with suitable audio systems, suitable wheels, and they were well styled. And the automotive industry had a huge recession. The world had a huge recession, but the automotive industry particularly took a hit. And so there wasn't as much money flowing into my space. I didn't see the biggest future in it because I realized people weren't going to be modifying their cars the same as they were. And so I wanted to make a shift into a new space, which was a huge leap because I had spent my whole life in automotive and audio.
Mhm.
But I was like, this video thing's the future, so I need to go ahead and make this jump. And it was early, so I knew if I got in now, I would work up the same expertise over time.
No, really cool. So you saw the downturn in the market. You had friends who were going through Y Combinator, scaling up their businesses. You were auditing classes at USC, getting to gain the business knowledge that you didn't have in the past, even though you do have a pretty impressive degree. You studied electrical engineering, you went to Michigan. So, how did Pilotly come about? Like, how did the idea of for Pilotly come about?
So you got to kind of fast forward through UB, which went from '07 to 2012. So and that was important because that process led me to be the not so great CEO with the
Mm-hmm.
wrong co-founder, with hired the wrong engineer, with bad angel investors, like everything can go wrong. But I had taught myself to code during that time, and we had a functional product that thousands of people watch TV on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to this program called NUMI, which was in the Bay. So I moved back to Detroit. I left LA, went back to Detroit. So I want to build here. And 1 year later, I got this program called NUMI, which was a house in the Bay Area that was backed by like Mitch Capor, Ben Horowitz, Facebook, Google, etc. And we all lived in this house, seven of us, seven different companies, and they closed network gaps and knowledge gaps. And through some mentorship from Ben, I was able to get an IP acquisition offer for that platform. Now, there wasn't a bunch of money, but it did
UB.
for UB, and
Yeah.
that showed me that like, oh, I could build something that people will buy. Like this is my lane. And so when I went to do it next time, now I really know how to be a CEO. So I'm like, I'm gonna go do Groupflix, a la carte TV service. I'm still in this lane of cable TV is gonna be dead by 2020, and I want to build this platform. So I built up this service by which I was using existing business models in Hollywood to manipulate into a la carte TV service. So I had the product done, so I was able to build that by myself. Then I had a great team of people from MIT and Stanford. People in Silicon Valley love to see that. Then I had 1,000 people sign up in 8 days with credit cards to watch this TV platform. And I
Mm-hmm.
need the content contracts to legally stream it. So investors told me if you get the content contracts, we're interested. I got the content contracts from Warner Brothers, Starz, and Sony. Took about 8 months to do that.